What if you had found an old board in the woods and discovered that this thing can predict the future? The catch is, once you start messing with it, it'll ask for something in return, your loved one's souls. What would you do in that situation? This is the story of Witchboard, a movie released in 2025 that I'm gonna recap it, count how many people met their end, and give the best tips to beat this mess. Before we start the game, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more devilish films, and lastly, hit that like button with your favorite board game. The movie kicks off in France at the end of the 17th century. We see a coven of witches paying a toll to the devil downstairs as they prepare to sacrifice a Catholic bishop named Grogan. The leader of these devil worshippers is Naga Soth, a one-eyed witch who has a personal beef with the bishop after he slapped her and blinded her. Just as she's about to finish him off, cavalry shows up and shoots 6 witches dead with muskets. Realizing her plan is going south, Naga Soth tries to take out Grogan, but a church worker with bad aim shoots and misses. Bad luck for him though, Naga Soth's a Red Dead Redemption pro, and she finishes him off with an axe. Amid the gunfire and witchcraft, we see another witch being prepped for the slaughter, while Naga Soth runs to grab a creepy board. The good news is that the bishop is freed before and manages to slap the witch in the face, causing her blood to spill onto the board. Naga Soth is captured by the Catholics, but we see part of the blood being absorbed by the board.
And here we go.
This movie would have been a lot easier to defeat if the knights had just taken out all the witches at once, including Naga Soth. To do that, they should have surrounded the area and shot from behind the vegetation. That way the witches would have been caught off guard and wouldn't even know what was going on. With a little luck, one of the shots would have hit Naga Soth directly, and her blood wouldn't have been absorbed by the board. In 2024, we find out that the evil board ended up in an antique shop where 2 crooks named Booker and Labarge break in to steal this specific item. However, Labarge decides to change the plans and steals other items from the shop, which pisses Booker off. He reminds him that they were only hired to steal the board. The two get into a fight. Booker gets hit with a crowbar, but Labarge finds out that firearms are deadlier as he takes 2 shots to the chest. Another way to defeat this movie would have been if Booker had decided to use all the ammo on Labarge, something he could have done in 10 seconds. But nope, he passes out instead, letting Labarge escape and sending 2 security guards to the black bag. The next day, we meet Emily, a former heroin addict who's in rehab. The girl recently started dating Christian, a chef who plans to open an organic food restaurant. She's really into Christian and reveals she's 100% dedicated to the relationship and the restaurant. Up until recently, she was searching for her biological parents, who allegedly abandoned her in an orphanage. Their mission of the day is to go mushroom hunting in the forest, which Emily does, though I honestly don't get why these idiots don't just go to a grocery store. As far as I know, you can buy organic food there.
You maniacs!
Anyway, Emily hears someone calling her in the forest, and obviously she has to check it out. It doesn't take long for her to see Naga Soth hiding behind a tree, which for some reason encourages Emily to approach her. However, the witch disappears, and Emily finds a cat standing on the ground. She then finds some bright red mushrooms and wonders if they're edible. Her attention gets distracted when she spots Naga Soth's board on the ground and gets really intrigued by it. Not knowing it's evil, Emily tells Christian she's gonna take the board to decorate the restaurant, which he thinks is a great idea.
What do? You get another brilliant idea.
If I found an item like that in the forest, with all those devilish symbols on it, I wouldn't even touch the thing. I'd just ignore it and head back to town, but not Emily. She takes the cursed board home without noticing Labarge's rotting body behind a bush. That night, we meet a witchcraft apprentice named Alexander. If you didn't catch it, he's Vecna from the 4th season of Stranger Things, which makes me think the guy's got a lot of bills to pay, since he agreed to star in a cheesy movie like this. He's accompanied by his 3 witches, who help him with his craft, and Booker, who was hired by Alexander to steal the board. The crook tries to apologize for failing the mission, but Alexander tells him to relax because they'll find the board soon enough. Booker lets his guard down and ends up having his throat exposed by the 3 witches, who pour his blood into a pentagram. Meanwhile, we see Christian and Emily hosting a menu tasting night for the restaurant. The party only includes close friends, including Brooke, basically the Gal Gadot of Temu. Brooke is Christian's ex, and it was Richie, Christian's best friend, who invited her. He explains that he's into taking Christian's ex out, and that it's better for him to be the next boyfriend than some random stranger.
What?
Emily doesn't care about the rival's presence, and is very cordial with her. The feeling's not mutual though, because as soon as Emily walks away, Brooke starts talking smack about her to Christian, mocking the fact that Emily recently checked into a rehab clinic. Christian tells her it's too late to chase after him because, when they were together, Brooke was always traveling for work and neglected the relationship. Since Brooke is a history expert, Emily shows her the board, and Brooke believes it's a pagan object, probably Wicca, which was the devil's witchcraft practice by Naga Soth. They then come up with the brilliant idea to mess with the board, with Emily grabbing a necklace and asking the board some questions. What's the point of a historian saying the object was used for devil worship if Emily just ignores the info? If she had just let go of the board, she could have easily ended the movie right there, but never mind. Luckily, nothing happens, and Emily mocks the cursed object. That's when the candles catch fire, and a flaming bird flies out of the fireplace. Richie says he always knew messing with that thing was a bad idea, but Emily and the crew think it was just an unfortunate coincidence.
I think not!
Come on, man. That was the perfect moment to grab the board and burn it in the fireplace, because it's obvious that the thing wasn't good news. The next day, Christian and Richie prepare for the restaurant's opening night while Emily stays home doing nothing. Bored out of her mind, she comes up with the brilliant idea of messing with the board again, and she ends up finding a human bone under the eye in the center of the object. Since this movie was written by a blind chimpanzee, Emily is watching the news and sees Alexander Vecna giving an interview about the stolen board. He explains that the object isn't a game, but rather a relic from the past that allows the user to communicate with spirits. As if that wasn't enough, this type of object also influenced the creation of Ouija boards, which, according to the so-called expert, are nothing more than a watered-down version of the original. At this point, Emily should have grabbed the board and handed it over to the police since it's a stolen item. Keeping it is a federal crime in the US, with possible fines and even jail time because of the board's value. But the idiot has the audacity to think the object belongs to her, and even plays with the damn thing again. She asks where her recently lost engagement ring is, and the object starts moving the bone toward Emily's room, where she miraculously finds the ring. Problem is, the board wants a payment for its lost and found services, and uses its powers to wreak havoc at Christian's restaurant. Magically, a pot catches fire, causing Richie to move it, only to knock over some water on the floor. Out of nowhere, the meat slicer turns on by itself, which makes Christian ask his friend to turn it off. I honestly wouldn't be messing with the switch, especially since both Christian and Richie see sparks coming from the machine. Given the situation, Christian could have just unplugged the slicer himself since he was closer to it than Richie. Since Christian is the boss, Richie listens. He just didn't expect to slip on the water and have his hand severed by the slicer. Christian does the right thing and wraps a belt around Richie's wrist to stop the bleeding, but the wound is so deep that his best friend bites the bullet in just a few seconds. Not knowing this, Christian searches for Richie's hand, but that same forest cat is faster and runs off with it in its mouth. When Christian tries to grab the hand, the cat hides under a trash can and threatens to bite the chef who's trying to steal its lunch.
What the hell's going on over here?
At the funeral, things get even tenser when Jessie, Emily's former drug dealer, asks if she wants to try the new product to calm her down, but the deal doesn't go through because Christian scares Jessie off. Later, we see that the forest cat asked to live with Emily, something Christian doesn't like much because he's on Team Dog. Still, he lets his fiancée keep the cat and asks her not to mess with the board for now. Christian decides to do a quick Google search and finds out that a woman died near the object in the 90s. He also realizes it's the same item stolen from the antique shop and decides to tell Emily about it. Problem is, Emily's been having terrifying nightmares involving Naga Soth and wakes up having a full-blown panic attack. Christian asks if she's gone back to using hallucinogenic gummies, but Emily assures him she's clean. He then argues with his fiancée because she doesn't want to give up the board. Emily defends herself, saying the police will pin it on her because of her history with heroin. That may be a possibility, but Christian could have just returned the board in her place and told the cops where he found it. That would have led the cops to investigate the crime scene, where they would have found the dead body of the criminal rotting in the forest, which would have cleared Emily and Christian. Never mind, because Christian leaves the next day to talk to the generic Gal Gadot and asks her about the board. The woman responds that drug addicts are more easily manipulated by the board than healthy people, and reveals she's going to talk to a friend of hers who's an expert in the dark arts. Meanwhile, Emily's taking a bath to wash off the stench, which isn't exactly pleasant, since she has a vision of Nagasoth and gets dragged into the tub. Somehow Emily sees the witch's past when she was just a kind healer. She used to help the people in the village where she lived, but Bishop Grogan didn't like that. He storms into her house and accuses her of witchcraft. The bishop demands Nagasoth confess, but when she refuses, he slaps her in the face, partially blinding her. The guy claims to serve God, but it sure looks like he's got a thing for the devil because, not satisfied, Grogan takes advantage of her beauty and then expels her from the village, asking the people to stone her. Before leaving, she says that if they want a witch, then a witch is what they'll get. She curses all the villagers and walks away. Emily wakes up from the witchcraft session and is freaked out by what she saw. She then gets a call from Jesse, once again tempting her to buy some hallucinogenic gummies, but the girl resists the temptation. Meanwhile, Christian and Brooke head to Alexander's mansion, the Wicca magic expert. The guy says he can help Emily and explains that his great-grandfather was Bishop Grogan and tried to hunt down Nagasoth. According to Alexander, the witch used the same board to cast a spell on the village, which drove everyone insane to the point they started fighting each other. In a quick flashback, we see 2 villagers getting finished off, so they're added to the list. Alexander says he'll visit Emily the next morning, and Christian promises to warn his fiancée. However, the woman isn't concerned, as she's all dolled up and even stopped by Victoria's Secret to buy the most provocative lingerie possible. She seduces Christian, who obviously forgets everything Alexander had told him. At first, he thinks his fiancé's back on heroin, but Emily denies it and says the board told her Jesse won't bother her anymore. While Emily's on top of Christian, we see Jesse at a drug den when suddenly the girl's cat jumps into the dealer's eyes and knocks him off the building, adding another victim to our count. The dirty deed going on between Emily and Christian pretty much pays the board's offering, but the guy really stops enjoying himself when Emily magically transforms into Nagasoth. Even though the witch is ugly as sin, Christian keeps going for some reason I can't explain. That's when Emily snaps out of the temporary possession and says she has no idea how it happened or why she maxed out her credit card on this sexy lingerie. The next day, we see Alexander Vecna helping Emily get rid of the curse in a cleansing session, but this guy's evil and just wanted to use her to bring Nagasoth's soul into the present, which doesn't end well for Emily. She swaps bodies with the witch and ends up in the 17th century, moments before the scheduled meeting with the fire where she's going to be burned. One thing I don't get in this movie is why Nagasoth ends up in the present and can speak English, while Emily goes back to the past and can't speak French. What's the logic behind this ritual? Never mind, because Christian's an idiot and doesn't realize the witch is in his fiance's body, even though she uses some old-fashioned words like when she invites Alexander to the banquet happening at the restaurant. The guy accepts the invitation and brings the board with him, promising to return the object to the antique shop, which he's definitely not going to do. In the past, we see Emily getting slapped by the bishop, who we find out wants to control the witch and her magic to dominate the region. But when Emily, now in the witch's body, starts speaking English, he gives up on the plan and guarantees she'll be BBQ'd that night. Meanwhile, we see the fake Emily going into the forest from the beginning of the movie to pick some mushrooms. Unfortunately, the witch is an idiot and picks those big red ones, which are highly hallucinogenic. You know what surprises me the most? Emily's not a cook, so someone explain to me why she's in charge of picking the ingredients. I give up because Christian's cook doesn't care and just boils the mushrooms in a pot without checking if they're safe for human consumption. In this case, the ingredients should have been vetted by the chef. And yes, I'm talking about Christian. After all, it's the restaurant's opening night and critics from all over are going to sample the menu and publish reviews. If this movie made any sense, Christian would have stopped those mushrooms from being part of the recipe, and this movie would have been over for most of the customers. Never mind, because the cook tries the stew and starts feeling a warm sensation in her body, something that spreads to the customers, who start freaking out. Watching all this are Alexander and Brooke, who almost tries a mushroom if the witch didn't stop her from doing it. That's when the witch inside Emily has a drop in blood pressure and almost faints. But Alexander gives her a little push and tells her to get revenge on the restaurant customers just like she did with the villagers who stoned her. Nagasoth remembers the scene when the cursed ones finished each other off, which adds 2 more more idiots to our tally. In addition to them, we see 8 people getting finished off by the customers, including 2 waiters and this guy who looks like Kevin Hart's body double. Christian's cook also starts causing trouble, as she's tripping hard and sees her boss's face being ripped off by him. Meanwhile, Alexander convinces Brooke to join his little clique, and that's when the guy grabs Emily and takes her to his hideout. Christian watches the situation and tries to follow his fiancée, but one of the food critics blocks his way and tries to stab him. Christian has no choice but to finish the sophisticated bald guy off, which happens at a really bad time since he gets caught by the police with the knife in hand. This makes Christian run off while being chased by the cops. Luckily, the Gal Gadot from Temu shows up to give him a ride and takes him to Alexander's house because the witch wants to have a man-to-man conversation with him. In the classic villain monologue, we see Vecna reveal that just like he's a descendant of Bishop Grogan, Emily is from the same lineage as Nagasoth, and that's why the soul swap ritual worked. Remember that 90s photo Christian found on the internet where a woman was standing next to the board? Well, that woman was Emily's mother, which explains why Emily was given up for adoption after her mother died while messing with someone else's witchcraft. Alexander's plan is genius. He wants to control Nagasoth and conquer the world, just like his great-grandfather wanted to do in the past. The problem is this guy's a complete idiot, because it doesn't make any sense for Alexander to reveal in front of Nagasoth that he's a descendant of the same guy who ripped out the witch's eye and sentenced her to the fire. Since the smooth-haired sorcerer likes to play games, he proposes a deal. If Christian kisses the possessed Emily and her soul travels from the past to the present, Alexander will give up his evil plan. The chef accepts the challenge and uses every tongue move possible to seduce Emily, but the trains in France were delayed, and the real Emily can't make the time travel. Christian then decides to improvise by grabbing a knife from a cultist and taking Nagasoth as a hostage. He says he's going to finish off the evil witch, but Alexander thinks he's just bluffing. At this point, I would have upped the stakes by injuring the witch superficially. That way, Alexander would realize Christian wasn't messing around. Then the chef could have demanded they hand over the board, since that's the object that allowed the body swaps. Once he had the board in his hands, all he had to do was kick the witch and run off to destroy the object at the first chance. This would have brought the real Emily back to the present, but whatever. Out of nowhere, Nagasoth remembers the atrocities of Bishop Grogan and rebels against Alexander. She tries to stab the smooth-haired guy, but one of the witch's minions jumps in the way and gets finished off by Nagasoth. The fight breaks loose, and Brooke switches teams, finishing off a thug who was trying to grab a gun from the floor. At this moment, Brooke could have ended the movie by grabbing the gun herself and shooting Alexander and Nagasoth, but whatever, because she prefers being carried by the other thugs. Taking advantage of the distraction, Christian grabs the board and burns it in the fireplace. With part of the object damaged, Nagasoth can't stay in the present and is forced to swap bodies with Emily, who narrowly escapes the barbecue. This pisses Alexander off so much that he fatally shoots Christian, who falls to the ground with a face full of tears. Vecna then pulls the board out of the fire, but the real Emily grabs the gun and gives the smooth-haired sorcerer a solid headshot, finishing him off.
Great success!
Christian dies right away, supported by Emily and Brooke, but the fun's in the past, where we see Nagasoth in the fire. She uses devil magic to avoid being burned, which makes me wonder, why doesn't she use this to get out of the fire? Forget that, because the bishop gets tired of this movie and tries to burn the witch, but the woman grabs him and they both get roasted by the fire. Back in the present, we see the police trying to figure out what the hell happened at Alexander's house, while he's placed in a black bag. That's when the bum opens his eyes, indicating that he's bulletproof or something.
No. No way. No.
Sometime later, Brooke visits the Vatican, where a priest offers diamonds in exchange for the board. Emily is also there and looks pretty happy to learn she's just gotten rich. The girls make their exit and the devious priest starts communicating with the board. That's when Nagasoth appears behind him, controlling him.
Oh, what a loser!
Witchboard got terrible reviews from the public and mediocre opinions from critics. Honestly, I hated the movie. The opening scene with the witches being hunted is good, and the one where Richie loses his hand reminded me a bit of the Final Destination movies. However, everything else is just way too boring. The actors are on autopilot, except for the one who plays Alexander. Besides that, the special effects are outdated for a 2025 movie, and what's the point of the plot dragging on for almost 2 hours? The film had potential, but it wasted on a bloated and confusing script. Therefore, I give Witchboard a 4.5 out of 10. Since the movie had a limited release in theaters, playing in just over 500 venues, it has made $500 $200,000 so far. With a $15 million budget, this movie will have to sell a lot of digital copies and make some serious money on streaming to break even. And without further ado, let's get to the kill count. The total number of kills was 34, and the black body bag trophy goes to Jesse. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I see you on the next video, and bye!